Today, we're diving into a corner of the roguelike genre that feels like stumbling into a secret vault. You know those games, the ones bubbling with creativity but somehow missing from every underrated roguelikes list? I found 3, and they're all published by the same publisher, Two Left Thumbs, who I should shout out for hitting my email with review keys for these games that I definitely didn't take too long in making a video for. No sir, not me. These aren't necessarily going to turn the genre on its head, but each game stands alone as something special, something creative, and something you've probably hopefully never heard of. I measure quote-unquote obscurity by looking at how many Steam reviews each game has. Any game with around 500 reviews or fewer is relatively obscure. It's not a foolproof metric, but it provides at least a semblance of structure. Two Left Thumbs knows how to pick them, but of course I'll be shouting out the developers as well since, you know, they're the ones who actually created these beautiful games. So yeah, we'll be talking about Novus Orbis with 37 reviews, Schism with 105 reviews, and also Picayune Dreams with just over 3K reviews, which of course is not that unknown, but still deserving of way more recognition. So let's start with Novus Orbis, a deck building roguelike that takes Slay the Spire's blueprint and injects it with its genetically altered DNA. Developed by Seizo Games and published by Two Left Thumbs, of course, this early access gem has just 37 Steam reviews. That's criminal considering how its combo system and turn countdown mechanics provide a fresh, more strategic take on a traditional roguelike deck builder premise. Here's the basic rundown. You're battling through shards of a broken world against celestial entities and grotesque monsters armed with decks that require more surgical precision than brute force. But the sauce lies in its combo meter. Every fight, your combo starts at 0. Cards display a number, say 2, and playing it when your meter hits that number reduces its SP cost, making it cheaper to use and amplifies its effect, whether adding more damage, more block, or increased healing, to name a few. Now, stay with me. The catch is that you only climb the combo ladder by playing cards sequentially. For instance, to get a card with a 2 to activate its combo effect, starting at 0, you gotta play a card with a 0, then 1, then 2. Mess up the sequence and your meter will reset to 0. And while you're scrambling to rebuild your combo chain, enemies will hit you with a run-ending 3-piece combo to the dome. This combo mechanic transforms every turn into something kinda like a high-stakes puzzle. Now pair that with the countdown-driven enemy turn mechanic. Enemies don't attack at the start of each of their turns. Instead, they have visible countdown timers, starting at 7, 5, or even 3, ticking down whenever you play a card or end your turn. Playing a card reduces their turn timer by 1, while ending your turn reduces it by 2. When they reach 0, then they act. That means sometimes the most brilliant move is doing nothing. Seriously, if your hand's garbage, you can just pass your turn to redraw. But yeah, if a murder goblin charges a 10 damage strike in 5 turns, you can stack block cards, kill it first, heal or buff yourself, or debuff its attack. There are many choices, which sometimes makes my brain hurt. And because enemy intents are visible, attacking, defending, buffing, healing, etc., you're always planning your moves for potentially bigger payouts or big brain decisions. There's still a bit of RNG with the card choices you get after battles or event rooms, but you have more control over it than you usually do compared to similar games in this category. There are 3 total classes: Warrior, Mage, and an upcoming unnamed 3rd class, each with 100 plus cards across 6 types. The Warrior kinda feels like Ironclad 2.0, straightforward but deadly when you stack strength boosting buffs and AoE attacks. The Mage is like Slay the Spire's defect, but with a slight twist on an elemental mage playstyle with elemental affinities amplified by the combo mechanic. My favorite Mage run involved stacking Wind Gust cards for evasion, which also gave wind element stacks, then detonating those wind stacks with a multi-hit AoE spell that would delete smaller enemies and burn through late game enemies who like blocking like little cowards. Then there are blessings, intra-run modifiers that can synergize with your deck. You may know them as relics. Some examples from that wind build I mentioned included one that gave me block after each instance of damage, significantly reducing the damage of enemy multi-hit attacks. Another that increased the block amount received per block card used. While simple sounding, the way the difficulty scales in the late game, those blessings became essential to survival. You earn blessings from bosses, mini-bosses, secret rooms, and events, though the ones from bosses usually have an adverse effect too. To be somewhat fair, there are some minor rough edges to consider. Even as an early access title, card variety still feels kinda lean. I felt like I kept seeing certain cards repeatedly. There's no way I saw all that both classes had to offer. Another thing is that late game battles can drag into wars of attrition. When many enemies block every turn and spam buffs while slapping you with debuffs, fights can sometimes outstay their welcome. The Mage especially demands near perfect scaling for the late game. Fall behind early and that 3rd floor boss will crush you. But patches seem to be gradually smoothing this out, and the core card play is still nearly impeccable. Every victory feels earned through innovative sequencing, not luck. To a point. Visually, it's charmingly crisp. It's like a blend of Slay the Spire meets retro JRPGs, all vibrant spell effects and readable animations with a slight pixelation to it all. For a deck builder, I also appreciate the level of detail detail on each new floor, and the boss and enemy designs are pretty well done. There's also decent potential here. I'm interested to see what the full release will entail. With another class coming and balance tweaks in progress, this could be the next deck builder breakout. So why dive in now? Because this game goes beyond play card hit enemy. It requires foresight, adaptability, and tactical execution. Not that other deck builders don't, but this one does it a little differently. If you've ever thought Slay the Spire needs more brain-burning mechanics, Novus Orbis is your answer. At $10 base price with a free demo, it's an obscene steal. Go check it out. Now let's say you love your roguelikes with a sprinkling of RPG elements, wacky guns, a god-worshipping system, and a more quirky, unhinged aesthetic akin to deranged notebook doodles. Well, you might want to check out Schism. Developed by Fami and published by Two Left Thumbs, this top-down roguelike has just 105 Steam reviews, a shocking number for how much wild creativity fits into this small package. You play as a prisoner dumped into a literal mountain of garbage to retrieve something called the Schismatic Engine. Your ship crashes immediately because of course it does, leaving you with a knockoff engine replica and what might as well be a spitball shooter. And that's it. There's not much of an overarching narrative. However, the true joy comes from watching systems collide in glorious mayhem. On the front lines of that mayhem is the frequency swapping mechanic. It's Schism's take on Ikaruga's polarity system. Enemies fire red or blue bullets, sometimes green, and you must match your frequency to absorb them. With the green ones, you kinda just gotta avoid them or use a bomb to clear all the bullets on the screen. Anyway, this mechanic creates constant tension where you're balancing offense and defense, especially when bosses layer their bullet patterns. The mechanic rewards spatial awareness and timing, forcing you to react to attacks faster than when you use your hands as the jaws of life on your dog when they start to eat something they shouldn't. Okay, so Schism's stat system is where build crafting can get serious. You got 8 core stats, all with their associated minor stats. Things like dexterity, intelligence, luck, accuracy, faith, vitality, strength, and wisdom. Some examples of minor stats include max HP and HP regen, which are tied to vitality, damage dealt and damage reduction through strength. You get the picture. Every level up gives you 1 stat point to invest into any of those major stats that I mentioned. Max strength and vitality for a tanky Thorns build, high faith to improve the boon from the active god you chose to worship, or boost wisdom to carry bombs and more keys than a janitor. Your stat focus becomes the foundation of every build. Ignore it and relics lose their potency. Speaking of relics, they work like any other special items in a top-down action roguelike would. They provide passive bonuses and mods to your character that impact your character's build even more. One relic I had during a winning run had a chance to cause bubbles to spawn on attack, potentially filling the room with strangely damaging bubbles that could smack enemies with their soapy onslaught. Take it even further with the god worshipping system, which creates a feedback loop with relics and your stat investments. 26 total deities offer unique boons for specific playstyles. I had a kinda broken build for a winning run where I chose the forest god. This god provided a return damage effect and the root status effect to all my weapons, which not only immobilized enemies when triggered, but would also detonate a small percentage of their HP. On top of that, I got rewarded relics every 3 levels that boost the Thorns effect and my damage reduction, and the RNG that run was surprisingly merciful to me, even though I ran into 2 random events back to back that forced me to choose which stat to reduce, which ended up being one of my primary stats for the build I mentioned. I nearly rage quit, but good thing I didn't because I ended up winning that run anyway. But yeah, I was able to build the ultimate stop hitting yourself build. Bosses literally hit themselves to death. Meanwhile, I pretended to care about dodging or frequency swapping. I didn't even mention the selection of active skills which add tactical depth. These MP costing spells include classics like fireballs which apply burn, ice shards which can slow or freeze enemies, and self-heals among other wacky spells you should see for yourself. MP refills after clearing rooms and fully restocks each floor. Weapons and weapon mods multiply the madness even further. 60 plus guns range from revolvers to bee shooters to slot machine guns with randomized bullets. Mods also apply globally to all equipped guns, meaning if a gun has a specific mod you like using, you don't need to swap to it for it to be active. During my Thorns build run, a mod that provided temporary shields on killing an enemy made it practically pointless to swap frequencies, which is sick because I was terrible at timing it, especially during boss fights, but I don't want to talk about it. Bosses are where all these mechanics converge. Each floor caps with a screen-filling monstrosity testing your builds and reflexes. They will force you to flex your frequency flipping skills, or lack thereof, and your positioning. The fights themselves are cool, but in early runs, I was kinda distracted by how demented the boss designs were, in a good way. It's a small thing, but one of my favorite parts of the entire game. Meta progression offers some pre-run advantages rather than permanent upgrades to help ease future runs. Earn currency based on run depth and spend it in the pre-run hub. There are a few other things about the game I could talk about, but I should leave some of it for you to experience. So the last thing I will say is that visually, Schism looks like a trippy journey through a daydreamer's doodle-ridden notebook, but instead of daydreams, they're daymares, and I'm 100% here for it. When bullets, bees, bubbles, and other wacky spell effects collide, it becomes visual insanity. Not for the faint-hearted or those who like more polished visual design, but engaging for those who embrace chaos and weirdness. Schism stands out in a genre flooded with safe clones. The god-worshipping system, stat scaling, and global mods allow for imaginative builds and playstyles. Bosses are mostly fair skill checks, and if your build is hidden just right, you can melt them in seconds. One of my few minor complaints is how unforgiving the RNG can be, and the number of random event rooms that can tank your build early on. Though that is a genre staple, it can sometimes feel overly punitive. Regardless, at $12 base price, I'd argue this game is almost essential for roguelike fans who crave depth and something familiar, but kinda bold and borderline manic. So please go check it out. Alright, we've talked about a brain-bending deck builder and a chaotic but surprisingly deep top-down action roguelike. Now let's wrap this up with a game called Picayune Dreams. More like Picayune Dreams, am I right? A bullet heaven, bullet hell hybrid developed by Stepford, Andyland, and Milky Possum, and of course, once again published by Two Left Thumbs. With over 3,000 overwhelmingly positive reviews on Steam, it might not be as obscure as our previous two entries, but trust me, it's still criminally overlooked when it comes to bigger platforms or creators talking about it. This game has a hypnotic atmosphere, precise movement, and one of the most mesmerizing soundtracks I've recently experienced in gaming. Right out the gate, Picayune Dreams throws you into the deep end. With no title screen and no hand-holding, you're kinda just there floating in the void, fending off waves of interdimensional nightmares. It's a choice that perfectly sets the tone. My first run was all kinds of messy, but the thing is though, that initial disorientation kinda works. It mirrors protagonist Sill's struggle, a cyborg lost in space on a seemingly endless mission, fighting to reclaim fleeting moments of life. And after a little while, I realized it was more than just a stand still and auto-win survivors-like. This game actually forces you to dance and have precise movement, weaving through bullet hell patterns while managing your weapons and upgrades, which share the same 12 available slots. Theoretically, you could have 12 weapons at once or like 10 upgrades and 2 weapons. I wouldn't recommend it, but it's possible. Of course, there are dozens of weapons to choose from, which can be a little overwhelming, especially as you unlock more but find yourself gravitating to a specific few. There are some familiar weapons for people who are afraid of change. For example, your standard round bullet shooter, a saw launcher, a melee slash, a homing space parasite, and a flamethrower, just to give you a taste of the massive arsenal that's available to you. Additionally, there are utilities such as passive upgrades that provide stat boosts or other defensive buffs. Things like increased weapon size, projectile speed, increased cooldown rate, faster movement speed, you know, all that. I'm also a big fan of how everything about the game, mechanically and visually, feeds into the atmosphere. Your character's appearance morphs with each upgrade, reflecting your build's evolution. The models tend to look slightly goofy if you look too hard at them, but despite that, they help express the game's sense of cosmic eeriness and psychedelic dread, especially when the waves of enemies begin encroaching on you or you finally reach the stage's boss. On top of all that, the soundtrack for this game is absolutely bananas. The spacey uptempo breakcore prevalent throughout the game must have some kind of crack in it. I genuinely believe it's half of what makes the game so addictive. They almost seem like they sync to the animation of your weapon's attacks. Now, I'm not a huge breakcore or drum and bass fan, but I am a fan of hard-hitting, crispy drums and whatever the hell is going on here. I'd be surprised if most people who started playing this game wouldn't feel similar after just the first or second run. Even better is that there are moments during narrative sequences where the soundtrack slows down, and just like most things, you gotta have balance, bro. What also hooked me was the narrative. While short-lived, it was well thought out, considering survivors-like games tend to have close to no story bits or a story that's straight bare bones and nothing more. Sill's story is surprisingly poignant and revealed through cryptic, dreamlike narrative sequences and boss dialogue. Her suit endlessly revives her, tying the game's roguelike progression to the lore. Each death is a reset and another loop in her tragic mission. I love it when games incorporate a mechanic as part of the meta-narrative. There's pretty damn good levels of replayability here too. Unlockable suits alter your starting base stats, or some might might allow you to start with a specific upgrade, and others may give you more critical chance or provide more vitality than usual. As a big fan of meta progression, I'm all about the skill tree. I appreciate that for the most part, these permanent upgrades can lessen the sting of future runs without trivializing them. However, to be a little honest, it does feel like some skills are noticeably more helpful than others. It's not a huge deal since if you have enough prestige, you can eventually unlock most, if not all, of the skills available. It'll take ages at that point, but it's a thing. I do have some other kind of trivial complaints. The near indecipherable descriptions of the weapons and upgrades make it a chore to know what they do. At that point, you may as well memorize each one. Another thing is that RNG can occasionally hand you a dud build, at least in early runs, and it's likely it'll just make you want to start a fresh run anyway. If you don't mind the grind, then it's probably not an issue. Otherwise, at $5 base price, with a crap ton of content, incredible atmosphere, and a superb soundtrack, it almost feels offensive to buy the game at such a great value. If you've ever craved a survivors-like with a little soul, where bullet heaven meets bullet hell and Y2K aesthetics collide with cosmic horror, stop looking, buy it, play it, and thank me later. And yeah, so there you have it. 3 roguelikes, all by talented developers. Each brilliant, each bizarre, and all united under publisher 2 Left Thumbs. Novus Orbis reimagines deck building as a high-stakes puzzle. Schism mixes god-worshipping, stat crunching, and frequency flipping into a riot, and Picayune Dreams is a psychedelic trip through a bullet heaven and hell that turns cosmic dread into gameplay. If I had to pick my personal favorite, it'd be Picayune Dreams, but that's just me. 2 Left Thumbs is great at curating a gallery of the genre's most left-field experiments. Plus, all the developers killed it with putting these games together, and I feel like we need more of that. In a sea of safe clones and dime a dozen indies, these titles remind me why I hunt for hidden gems. For the thrill of stumbling on something that feels new, something that makes you almost yell, how does this only have 37 reviews? If any of these sound even a tiny bit interesting, try the demos for these bangers, and if one hits, buy it. Support developers who aim to twist familiar formulas into something with a little more sauce. And hey, if you've got some underrated roguelikes or any obscure indie games to share that more people should know about, let me know in the comments. I'd also truly appreciate it if you could like the video, as it helps me reach more people. Also, please subscribe to stay up on more obscure indie games and hidden gems. See you in the next video. Peace out.